The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Dallas Cowboys, a classic NFC East rivalry matchup to kick off the NFL season. But this isn't just any NFL season. No, this is the inaugural Sips and Simulation season. Here, I'll be making a custom cocktail for every primetime matchup this season, blending in elements of each team, their city, and any other random details I feel like throwing into the mix. Once we've got our drink firmly in hand, I'll be simulating the game, both in Madden and in my homemade Monte Carlo simulation. And don't worry, Browns, Saints, and Titans fans, I know you don't have any primetime games, which I am incredibly thankful for, but I will also be simulating all the non-primetime games and packaging those up in a weekly recap video. You just won't get your own custom drinks, but what was I gonna do for Cleveland? All right, introduction over. Let's get into our first drink, a Clover Water. All right, so you might be thinking, Clover Water? Really? Do you know these fan bases? Eagles versus Cowboys, and the drink is called a Clover Water? And to that I say, shut up and let me explain, all right? We're getting there. Starting with the first drink from the Philly side, a Clover Club. So the Clover Club is a pre-prohibition cocktail named after a gentleman's club in Philadelphia called the Clover Club. And despite the connotations of gentlemen's clubs nowadays, back then, according to the club itself, this club was a club for social enjoyments, the cultivation of literary tastes, and the encouragement of hospitable intercourse. Huh? Okay, so that doesn't actually sound a lot better, but it was basically just a place where a bunch of rich dudes could go, have drinks, talk business, and whatnot. So the drink's recipe first popped up around 1908, although back then it was actually called a clover leaf. And it was quite popular at the time, but by about the 1930s, the drink had really started to fall out of favor, especially with Prohibition. And people were really only writing about the drink to kind of shit on it. But like a lot of these sort of pre-prohibition cocktails, it's experienced a sort of revival in our modern cocktail renaissance. And it's a beautiful drink. It's this lovely sort of pink color. It's made with gin, raspberry syrup, lemon juice, and an egg white. And so the egg white gives it a sort of frothy head, the raspberry juice gives it this sort of pink color, and it's just this beautiful, tart, sweet sort of flavor profile to it. So that is Philly's representative, and now we are going to fly down south to meet Dallas's representative. All right, so for Dallas, we get a simpler and much more modern, actually, mixed drink, ranch water. Despite literally just being tequila, lime juice, and Topo Chico, this drink was not officially invented until 1998. So that means that while it is still older than me, not by much. And as a result, there's a lot less to sort of unpack from a historical aspect here. Sources generally attribute the drink to Kevin Williamson in Route 616. Interestingly, though, when he first started serving the drink, it was actually just as a margarita with the bottle of Topo Chico on the side, so that patrons could sort of water down their margarita to whatever their preference was. Of course, nowadays when you get this drink, it's either served up in a highball or as a pre-packaged canned cocktail. So they're kind of dictating to you how much dilution you're gonna get in it. But interesting bit of background. So now that we've met the parents of our drink, let's meet their happy little accident, the Clover Water. All right, so as mentioned, this is a custom cocktail that I created by blending those two inspirations. And immediately where my head kind of went was to do this like a gin fizz, but with tequila instead. So if you're unfamiliar, a gin fizz is basically just a sort of like frothy, foamy version of like a Tom Collins, which is really just a gin highball. And some of these gin fizzes can get really crazy. Like, have you seen a Ramos gin fizz? Have you seen the fucking head on that thing? This shit looks like a milkshake. So the spec for this drink is going to be 2 ounces of our Blanco Tequila. You can use whichever tequila you like. This is just what I happen to keep on hand here. I'm not how to drink. I don't spill my alcohol. Every drop of this is precious to me. Next, we are going to do 1 ounce of lime juice. My alcohol is precious. My juices are not. I am lazy. I don't want to cut limes. I use, pre-squeezed citrus. I'm sure people in the comments are going to be upset about that, but like, this is my drink. I'm drinking it. When you make it, cut some limes and do it that way, all right? Like, come on, chill. 3/4 of an ounce of our raspberry syrup. This is pretty easy to make. It's really just sugar and water, melt it so that you get your simple syrup, and then toss in a bunch of raspberries, sort of mash them up, and then strain out any of the pulp so that you don't have any of that in there. And look, it's so pretty. Like, look at how pretty that color is. And then finally, 1 egg white. If this makes you squeamish, do not worry. It is totally food safe. That is what the alcohol is for. And if you're a vegan, there are also, you can just substitute aquafaba in for the egg white. God, it's like I fucking splooged all over myself. Pre-crack the egg white. Okay, lesson learned. With all those in our shaker tin, we are now going to shake it without ice. This is called a dry shake, and when you do this, you really want to pay attention to keeping sure that you've got a solid grip on your shaker because you don't have ice pulling a vacuum in here, and as a result, it's way easier for the two halves to separate than it would normally be. So basically what we're doing right now is frothing up the drink a bunch, getting that all nice. Like I said, for Ramos Gin Fizz, literally they would employ people just to fucking shake these things because that's how important it is. And when we feel like we're done, which I think is now, cool, we're going to stop, pop it open, add our ice. I'm just using a single big cube of ice because, again, lazy. Whoop. Top it back in, shake that up again. All right, call that good. Take our waiting highball, and I'm going to decide to double strain this in here. You could probably get away with a single strain if you wanted to. Oh yeah, look at that. Hell yeah. Whoop. Okay, yeah, actually single strain. This is the first time I've made this cocktail. We are learning on the fly here. And then top off with our trusty Topo Chico. This might make it go crazy. Woo, hell yeah, look at that. Look how pretty that is. All right, and that is how you make a Clover Water. Let's give it a little taste. Ooh. It is definitely tequila forward. The raspberry does not come through on that as much as I would sort of want it to. Let me see, what if we get just the foam? Oh, the foam is delightful. Oh my goodness. That foam, this foam is literally like when you get a coffee that has like one of those cold foams on it. Ooh. Okay, so all of the sort of like fruity raspberry notes, all of that tartness that kind of gets washed out by the tequila and the lime in the actual liquid of the drink, it's all suspended up there in the foam. You get that extra surface area on your tongue, and it really, all of the flavors start playing with each other really nicely. Okay, yeah, so lessons learned from this one. Don't double strain it, just single strain it. I was worried that there might have been some like pulp or seeds from the raspberry syrup, but basically as long as you do a good job on your raspberry syrup, you don't gotta worry about straining it here, and the double strainer will take away some of that nice head. And don't serve it with a straw. I was kind of worried about the size of the head, that I would have to serve it with a straw, but really like, it's just great on its own. So, with our drink firmly in hand, let's now get to the simulations.
All right, welcome to my Monte Carlo simulation. I'll likely put out a video at the end of the season walking through how this all works under the hood, but the general idea is this. Using historical player and team data, I fit a bunch of distributions for yards after catch, air yards, rush yards, play calling tendencies, all that. Then a single game is simulated by randomly sampling those distributions, updating the down, distance, score, all those important game details, until the game ends after a set number of snaps. Now, the outcome of a single one of these games is going to be pretty random, but if we run enough of these simulations, the average values should converge towards the true values. That's the Monte Carlo element of this simulation. You can see on this GUI that we select how many games you want to simulate, so I'm going to set this to 10,000, tell it to record and export the player stats in addition to the team scores, and allocate 8 cores to the simulation. You can see that this will take a little over 7 minutes to finish, so in the meantime, let's hop on over to our Madden simulation.
Alright, and with this we are off. Now, Madden is really interesting as a simulation platform because it's very clearly not intended to be a simulation platform, right? The purpose of Madden is to be a game, to be fun. Huge catch by Dallas Goedert there in traffic. Great start for the Eagles. So there's a lot of sort of working around the game that you have to do if you want to make it a simulation platform. Obviously, the biggest obstacle is running multiple simulations. Little screen, A.J. Brown sends the defender to the Shadow Realm. Saquon also sends the defender to the Shadow Realm before getting tackled by about 4 Dallas Cowboys defenders. Since Madden assumes you want to play the game, it doesn't really provide a way to just skip to the results. So even though these are just 2 CPUs going against each other, it's still playing at normal human speed. So that's the biggest drawback of Madden as a simulation platform. But why is it good? Well, it's the thing that Madden sells itself on every year: realism. Now, obviously it's far from perfect, but EA has access to all of that incredible player tracking data that the NFL collects and has put a lot of work into their AI and physics engine, so it's far more detailed than my Monte Carlo simulation. Also, the fact that we have to watch the entire game is a hidden benefit, because it means pretty visuals for this portion of the video. 4th and 3, let's see. Not an issue. Jalen Hurts just scampers right in for the touchdown. Eagles go up 7-0. Dallas, however, has a chance to respond. Dak Prescott rolling out to his left. Hey, you know what? Fuck it. George Pickens down there somewhere. Heaves a bomb, and then Pickens mosses his defender to bring it in, tie the game up at 7-7 apiece. Like I said, obviously the realism isn't perfect, and I think that's pretty clear on this play where Jalen Hurts does a cool 360 no-scope to Jahan Dotson. A few plays later, you're the Eagles, you're looking at 1st and goal from the 10. What are you going to do? You're going to give it to Saquon and let him just cake it right up the gut, right through a defender, into the end zone, going up 14-7. Now, the Cowboys managed to put together a decent drive, but one of the weakest areas of this game is situational decision-making. So 3rd and 5, what do? You just throw a jump ball in the back of the end zone and have to settle for the field goal. Now, there's one thing you'll notice a lot in future simulations, and that is that the QB AI in this game loves to run. Now, for a QB like Jalen Hurts, that makes a lot of sense, right? He can take it all the way down to the 40 and set his team up nicely. Speaking of running the ball, the very next play they say, hey, you know the only thing better than Jalen Hurts running the ball? Saquon Barkley running the ball, as he easily picks up another 15 yards. Continuing to build on that theme, we again have a 2nd and 6 from the red zone. Nothing available downfield. Jalen Hurts just takes off immediately and easily picks that one up with his legs. Another fun quirk of Madden is that it absolutely loves players lower on the depth chart, as you can see here where Grant Calcaterra catches the touchdown pass. Finally, after marching down the field, Brandon Aubrey is able to hit a nice little chip shot field goal, making this 13-21, a 1-score game at the half. First drive of the second half for Dallas. Dak Prescott, little pump fake, looking, scanning, wants it all, looking for CeeDee Lamb, except Cooper DeJean is going to steal that one away and give the Eagles the ball back. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite in the end zone, so they're going to have it literally on their own doorstep. Can the Eagles get a little bit of breathing room? First play, hands it off to Saquon Barkley, who nearly avoids getting brought down for a safety. Not out of danger yet, still on that 1-yard line, although honestly 1 yard might be being generous in this situation. Second go around this time. Jalen Hurts looking, scanning, going to take the check down to Dallas Goedert, and that is going to give them a little bit of breathing room, but they will punt the ball back to the Cowboys. Next up is a 4th and inches from the Cowboys, who have a really nice play call. Running back goes completely untouched after the play fake and just gets hit on the check down, picking up a nice chunk of yards and a huge first down. Same drive here. Cowboys in the red zone. Dak, looking, scanning, nobody open, says, "I'll do it myself," takes it in for the tying touchdown, but they got to get the 2-pointer. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the play call is here, but it seems to be Dak just leading a cha-cha line of Eagles linemen, but it works. Cowboys have tied it up. Highlight from the next drive. Cam Jurgens with a huge block to spring Saquon Barkley for a nice 20-yard pickup. Later that same drive, Eagles say, "Hey, you hit Hail Marys, we can hit Hail Marys too." Devonta Smith hauls in his first catch of the game for 55 yards. Not a touchdown, but 2 plays later, Saquon Barkley pinballing off blockers, defenders, and into the end zone. Eagles retake the lead. And this game ends not with a bang, but with a whimper as both teams go scoreless in the 4th quarter, best exemplified by this huge sack of Dak Prescott. And there we have it. The first game of the Sips and Simulation season ends with a 28-21 Eagles victory. Our Monte Carlo simulation had similar results, predicting a 25-14 Eagles victory after crunching 10,000 games. Now, if you're a scoregami fan, that score might have caught your attention because it's very rare. Only 5 NFL games have ended in a 25-14 final score, because you can't get to 25 through just 7-point touchdowns and 3-point field goals. The reason for this odd score is because our Monte Carlo simulation is averaging the scores from all 10,000 of its simulated games, resulting in final scores somewhere between the actual most likely outcomes. As a result, it can be helpful to instead check the most common outcome or mode of our simulation, which is a 21-14 Eagles victory. Moving down to the individual player stats, we can see that Jalen and Dak both had very good games in the Madden Sim, with Dak passing the ball more but also suffering an interception. Overall, pretty much what we'd expect to see there. In terms of rushing, both Saquon and Javonte Williams had good games, both averaging a healthy 4.7 yards per carry. What really stands out, though, is the QB rushing numbers. 91 yards from Jalen Hurts is over twice his average from last season, and 6 yards more than his top rushing performance last season. Dak's rushing numbers are even more inflated, at almost 10 times his average from last season, and 24 yards more than his best last season. Honestly, receiving is just a mess, so I'm just going to let you pause the video if you want and take a look for yourself. The major thing I want to point out, though, is that star wide receivers are under-targeted, with CeeDee Lamb having only 3 receptions and Devonta Smith having only 1. Now, because our Monte Carlo simulation is going at a play-by-play basis, we have player stats from that as well, which in my opinion are actually significantly more plausible than the Madden results, though again, I will let you pause the video if you want to check them out in detail. Also, this is a fun benefit of the Monte Carlo simulation, is that because we save the stats from every simulated game, we can show the distribution for any stat. So, for example, this right here is Jalen Hurts' passing yards distribution. You can see that it's a nice normal distribution, centered around 190 yards. So based on this, we can see that his 204-yard performance in our Madden Sim is right about average. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the delightfully fruity and foamy Clover Water. If you decide to make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for which drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.